then we're going to want to do just a direct done one. We'll put that while loop in an if, in a else, I mean. So if I want to say what's the random pn rand? Okay, pn rand. Well, let's do it this way. Generated planets dot push back planet now we're going to say pn storage dot size, or pn storage dot at pn rand. And pn rand equals random 1 through pn storage dot size. And we'll do that -1. Alright, so that will set up the planet with a name. Now we say else, because this is going to be if we're on any other value except for 1. Well, let's think here. Okay, no, yeah, that'll work, because this is a while loop, and so this will go on. We won't have to re-loop through the for loop through back to 1. We'll just use the while loop for that. Say that'll work. I was thinking maybe this wouldn't work because maybe we had to go back to 1 if a new name had to be picked, but that's not what we'll need to do. We'll just loop through this again in here to check if there is a name that's using that already. That's being used already. Looping through the generated planets, I mean, not through PN storage. But we'll leave that section for later on. Right now, what we do here is we need to figure out how we're going to work with everything else. So first we have to generate the EKS value. And if we go over to planet here, I think it's in the header file. So the way that it works, if I remember correctly, is that we generate a value between 1 and 6,000 or something, and then multiply that by some value to get the 1 point whatever value. Where are we? Features. Hence Kardashev scale. Okay, multiplied by 0.001. Gotcha. So it's 1 to 5.5k. Very good. Alright. So let's move these up here to the front here, since we're working on these right now. Plus we'll be closer to the planet class if we need to go there. So we want to go, let's see, what's the name of that variable, PE rand. planet EKS rand equals random 1 through 5500. Alright, PE rand equals PE rand times 0.0001. I think I may have one too many zeros. Yeah, only 2 zeros. So that'll get us the smaller version here. Actually, that should be a float. Actually, it is a float. Never mind. I'd already anticipated that problem. Evidently. So we have running a file. So 0 to 0.9, 1 to 1.9, 2 to 2.9, 3 to 3.9, 4 to 4.9, and 4 should be okay, greater than 4.9, that's what that is. So 5 and higher. And that'll be our if statement checks. These here. So if PE rand equals is greater than or equal to, is 0.0 one of them? Or is it 0.01? No, 0 is 1, okay, so 0.0. And if PE rand is less than or equal to 0.9, else if, I shall just copy paste this. Easier that way. I would just change this to 1.9 and 1.0. Yeah. Else if 2, else if oops, 3, else if 4, else if PE rand is greater than 4.9. Alright, so type 0, type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4, and type 5. Now we need to come up with the limitations for all these things. For example, there are some other values we want to add to this too. Think about it. I want to make sure they're not. So, yeah, planet size will need to be one of the variables here. The planet size will determine the population, but the EKS will be determined by the planet size. Will determine what the planet size is, because certain types, sizes of planets won't be able to sustain a type of, like a a smaller planet's not going to be able to sustain a Type 5 civilization, because the Type 5 civilization has to be on a huge planet that can sustain large population and large infrastructure. The size value will be an int, I think, though. That's not to say you can't have population higher than what the planet can sustain. In that case, then you start having your resources depleted on the planet. Let's see, planet atmosphere thickness. Float. P, planet, mineral, inserts, resource type. To do, add in mineral deposit values for mining. Float, planet, M. So I'm not sure if we should have it broken down by the type of resource, or just have everything inside of a resources category and be included the same. For example, should we have planet resources, or planet resource, food, fresh water, etc.? If we do it one item each, in other words, we have the food and food production, and then the food consumption, water production, water consumption, we can then say, okay, we can have, you know, specialized events on certain planets, like having a food shortage or a water shortage, instead of just saying, okay, all these are resources and you're going to be using them up as a resource only. And so you have the food and water included together as part of planet resources. I'm leaning more towards the having the individual ones, just because it adds a little more in-depth, you know, mechanics into the game, and also provides a outlet for, you know, planetary events where the player might have to go and do something, you know, or face a negative consequence. Kind of like what we have on Spore and some other games, where if there's something going on and you don't deal with it, there's a negative impact. In this case, if you don't deal with it, your population starts to die off for not having enough water or food, until the population is at a point where it's not overtaxing the ability to produce. In other words, once consumption is lowered to a point that it's not greater than your production rate. Thought one of my drives was clicking there for a second. Guess it was something else, though. Yeah, it must have been. So we won't add the stuff in for that right now, because that's going to be more towards the final release. So P, resource, food, food production. How fast or how many units of food are produced per turn, and that'll be changed to like per second or minute or something. Floats, planet resource, water, or let's say food consumption. Food are consumed per turn. Floats, PR, food, Storage. We call it storage. Or do we call it something else? Essentially, we need to be able to have a variable that will contain the food that's produced and then allow it to be consumed from there. So that as food is produced, it's added to this variable, and as it's consumed, it's removed. So that we can have that whole interaction happening. But what to call it? I don't want to say storage because that's kind of hokey. Supply. That's right. I can always supply. Like storage, except not as hokey. How much food the planet currently has available. Now, some people might be saying, "Oh, wait, Gio, you're making this way too complex." Well, that's the whole point. I want this game to be really in depth. We have a lot of games that are coming out now that are made for more of casual players that don't want to deal with a lot of information. They want to deal with the least amount of information possible, but still be able to play a game with some information being provided to them. I think that's really bad. That's good for some types of games, but it's really bad for RPGs and this kind of game, where you want to have this level of interaction. Just because you can have a lot of cool things that happen due to that level of interaction. Like, for instance, if you were able to say, trying to think of a good example from a game that would benefit from more complicated kind of structure. Let's say Call of Duty. If you had like a weapon overheat system in that, where if you just sat there and sprayed your weapon at the enemies, it would eventually overheat and you wouldn't be able to fire the weapon anymore for a while. I would encourage less, more strategical, more tactical play instead of just spraying everywhere. And you would also have, they kind of try to make you do it by limiting your ammo, but that still is, it still doesn't work very well. Making the weapon become disabled will do that, like they had in Mass Effect. That's one of the things I really hated about Mass Effects 2 and 3, is that they took out the overheat system in favor of a more FPS-y kind of thing. They should have kept them both in. Made you have a limited amount of ammo, but also have the weapon be able to overheat and become disabled. That would have made it for a lot more intense gameplay, I think. So I'll add that for water as well. We're just going to have food and water for now. I don't think we'll have it for anything else, just food and water. Those are the major building blocks of any civilization. If you don't have food or water, you're basically screwed. I'm not going to go really far crazy enough, like, for instance, making each planet have their own economy. That will determine how many resources you get or anything like that. That's not as far. I'm not going to go that far. That is too far if you ask me. Although, maybe I will. I don't know. I have hinted at maybe adding some sort of planetary edict system in where you can apply different edicts to planets to have them do different things. Like an edict for more population growth, so you can get more, more crewmen for your ships, or more mineral production of a certain type of mineral. So maybe we will have a economical system for each planet or something. Might be an interesting thing to kind of maybe dabble with. Make this more of like a simulator couched in a RPG, couched in a strategy game, couched in an X4 game. Which actually technically it kind of already is, but make it even more so. And then floats, planet resource, water production. how many units of water are produced per turn. Let's preface this with drinkable, because you're still going to have water on the planet, salt water, but it won't be drinkable, so drinkable water. Planet currently has available. So how this will work is that we'll say available, I think I type avail. That's right. There's an extra, is there not? Maybe not, maybe that is, I guess that's right. And what we'll have to also do is figure out how much food and water is going to be required per population, and then that's even going to bring it down further, maybe even to, you know, kids, adults, and then, you know, senior citizens are going to need different levels of food and water. That'd be interesting to add into there too. So yeah, maybe we'll just go, you know, say complexity for the hell of it, not in the coding, but in the game itself. Just for realism, I mean. It's going to turn people off, I know it will. Casual gamers are going to look at it and say, what the? This is like crazy. But I think some of the more old dog RPG, X4 players will probably think it's a little cool. Or maybe a lot cool. But we'll see what happens with that. So we have the population, sorry, the size. The planet size is going to be, actually it should be a float. Not net. Well, what would be the advantage of having a float over an int? You could have half planet sizes, but that's just kind of crazy. Maybe we should do a float, because then we can have planet sizes that scale up instead of, you know, having one that's one size out of value and then magically getting bigger just out of nowhere. Just like, so, for example, you have a planet that's of size 2, and then you have a planet of size 3, and that one's bigger somehow than the one of size 2, without anything being in between. So I think a scale might work better. So we'll keep float. And this might even use this in the graphics version to determine the actual literal size of the game, of the planet inside of the game as well. Because what's going to happen is that you're going to navigate through the sectors and systems through a map, but when you're inside the system, you can actually, you know, fly through. You'll be able to fly through the system on your ship, or you can just go through the systems and gates, or systems and sectors with gates. If you wanted to fly through normal space and waste all that time. So it's going to be like Eve, except in that regard, except you're not going to have to physically travel to a gate if you go through the map, but you will have to travel physically through the star system to do things within it. I still don't know though if it's going to be a 3D game or a 2D game that pretends to be 3D, like Space Pirates and Zombies. Pretends to be 3D, but it's 2D. Or if we're going to go full 3D like Eve. 3D would be a lot harder, but I think it would also add a lot more retail value. You know, value to the game. Alright, so we'll leave that as a float for now. However, we will actually go through and make it a working variable right now, because it'll be affecting the size of the population. Population has to be an int because there's no such thing as a fraction of a person. at least not in reality or in practicality. And really, there actually should never be an example of a fraction of a person. It's just wrong. So it's going to stay in it. But how to determine how much population will be the maximum population per the planet's size? There's a good question. It's not going to be a one-to-one situation like it's going to be some sort of function using an algorithm of some kind or a formula of some kind that will determine that. We have to figure that out right now, though. So we have to figure out what's going to be appropriate. Like, we can't have a small planet having 100 billion people on it. But at the same time, we didn't want to have a large planet that has 100 people on it. So we need to figure out somewhere in between, and that's where our friend Mr. Calculator comes in. We have to figure out. So let's say we have a planet of size, let's say 5.697, and there goes the lead piece of crap. 697, and let's say that we want to say. This is essentially going to be a medium-sized planet on a scale of 1 to 10. So this is a little bit over half. So it's not going to have a huge number of people on it, but there's still going to be a good number of people on it. The EKS value for a planet of this size, let's say, would probably be 3.5, let's say, or 3.6, or somewhere in there, in the middle. We'll say 3.4. Although I don't know how that's going to factor in. We're just going to have that there for right now. Planet size. Okay. So yeah, I really have no idea where this is going. I'm just musing out loud here. So let's say that we want to have a population of around 750 million. Not exact, just around in there somewhere. So now we have to figure out what kind of formula is going to get us there, and how complex it needs to be able to have a nice range of possibilities, depending on like a random value or something. So let's say that we have. Let's start out with trying to figure out how to get to that 7.50 million. So we got 5.697. I'm going to multiply that by, let's start with 25,000. So that gets us to 142.5. So that's about way short of what we want to do. So 5.697 times 23 million. That gets us to 131 million. So we're getting closer. Much closer. So I want to figure out if we're going to go just a PS2 random value multiplication, what would that look like? Let's see, 5.697 times 80 million. So 80 million gets us to 455,000. Or 455 million. 100 million. So we're getting closer. So obviously it's going to have to be we have to have other multiplying going on within it in order to make this work. Because we can't have a random going from 1 to like 100,000 or a billion or something. It's going to be way too large of a range. So let's say that we have. Let's start saying that we have a set value that's going to be multiplied times a random. So let's say we'll have a set value of 23,000. Now let's say it's going to be multiplied by a random of 4 this particular EKS value of range of 2 to 30, and it's going to be on a float. So it's going to be a float range. Or no, I'm making it in range just because. So let's say we have 15. Alright, so we get to 345,000. Now we're going to multiply that. I'm going to write this down. So 23. That's right, 23,000. Okay, remultiply that by 15. Okay, so times random. We're going to multiply that by another random of, we'll say 10 to 20. And let's say in this case it's going to be 11. Alright, so we're up to 3 million now. Now let's multiply this by the EKS value. So in this case, times 3.4. Writing down the formula as I go here. EKS. Alright, then all that, damn it, freaking lead. All of that is then going to be multiplied by the planet size. So then times 5.697. So that gives us about 73 million. So now let's say all that's going to be again multiplied by another random, except freaking hell. Except this time it's going to be a higher random, 50 to 100. Well, we'll say 67. Alright, so that gets us to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 4 billion, 4.9, whatever. So after all that, it's all going to be divided by 4. Which takes us to that's still too much. Okay, how about divided by 8? Okay, that's respectable. That's about right in the range where we want it to be at. It's pretty close. 615 million. Let's have these ranges be a static range, not based on the EKS value. So this range was 1 to 30. This one was 1 to 30 as well. EKS, and this one was 50 to 100. Actually, that was 10 to 30. That's right. 50 to 100. And then divided by 8. So let's go ahead and try a different one here. Let's say that we have a planet value of 8.95 and the EKS value of 4.87. Let's apply it to this formula here. So we got 23,000 times 1 to 30, so let's just say 20, we'll say 29 in this case. Then it's multiplied by a range of 10 to 30, so times 12. Then that's multiplied by the EKS value, 4.87, which is then multiplied by the planet size, 8.95, which is then multiplied by, let's say, 75. And then that's divided by 8. So that is going to be 3,270,000,000. That sounds about right to me. I think I like this formula. It adds enough ranges that you don't have the same amount of population for each type of planet of a certain size, because not only is the planet and EKS value random, so are the 3 randoms that are in here, and they're on a pretty good range. So I think that'll give a lot of variability to the planet sizes. So we had 25 and then 12 and then 75. Let's just change that, use the same values that we were just using, but change it slightly, just to see the variability. So 23,000 times, so we said 25 before, so let's say 20 this time on this one. Last time was 12. This time we'll say 17. EKS is going to be the same, 4.87 times 8.95. Then 75 was the last round. This time we're going to say 52. And that's all divided by 8. So yeah, this time we get 2,215,000. So it's a very nice range. So we'll go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and that'll be done over here in the game CPP. Let's add in, so int pop rand 1, pop rand 2, and pop rand 3. Population randoms. Alright, so let's create a new function here. It's going to return an int game calc pop, and we won't send anything through. Well, no, no, because the E and the E and P rands, planet size rands, are going to be class, inside the class, so I won't need to send them through. Let's go ahead and add that over to here now. That should be down here with planet generation. Alright, so return so 23,000 times, let's do the pop randoms first here. (10 to 30) and pop rand 3 equals random 50 to 100. Okay, so times pop rand 1 so we should need 6 of these, if I'm correct here. Times pop rand 2 times p e rand times p size rand. We have to add that in. Times pop rand 3 divided by 8. And yeah. So I'll do the order of operations and go through all this as it should. And that'll return the value, which we can then use later on. So, now for the planet size, size has to be at least 1. That's the smallest it can be, and 10 is going to be the largest. So a type 0 planet would start from 1 and go to maybe 3. A type 2 planet could go from 2 to 4, or well, 2 to 5. No, 2 to 4. A type 4 planet can go from 3 to 6, and then a type 5 planet can be from 5 to 10. I don't like, let's see. So, again, writing all this stuff down. Gotta find the freaking room here. Alright, so, now, what we need to do is figure out the ranges for the planets. For the planet sizes, rather. The way to do that now will be just to go over it logically here. Flip the page because we've got too much stuff on there. That one side. Wallet, you can go there for now. Let's see. So, type 1, or actually type 0. Type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4, and type 5. So we got 5 types. Now, well, 6. If we had 5, we could do 2, but we have 6 types. So, the way I want to do this is I want to have it overlapping. That said, I want there to be ranges that only 0 can go to and only 5 can go to. Or that can only go to 0 and 5. For example, I only want planet sizes of like 1 to, like, let's say 2.5 available in the 0 tier. or sorry, no, 1 to 1.8 available in the 0 tier. However, I want to have 1.9 to 2.3 available in the tier 1s. So it's going to be a kind of interleaved system where each type can have a certain range with another type, but there's going to be some planet sizes that are only available in the bottom end and the top end. And also, in addition to that, the bottom, let's say bottom 4 will have a larger range of planets than the top 3 or 2 will. Just again to balance it out and allow for a little bit more uniqueness. So, for example, tier 0 we'll break this down into sections, which will be the absolute minimum for the tier, the absolute maximum for the tier, and then we'll have the an inner section which will say the which will dictate the range where only this tier can operate on, and that's only going to be for tiers 0 and 5. 1 through 4 will have won't have that kind of differentiation. But obviously the lowest it can go, so the AL is 1, and the absolute maximum AM is going to be 2.5. Now, the tier specific low is going to be 1. Oops, I put it on the wrong line. Damn. Alright, let's go ahead and erase that. Alright, the TSL, tier specific low, will be 1 for this one, obviously. And the tier specific high, TSH, is going to be 1.8, like we were just discussing. So now, for tier 1, the absolute minimum for tier 1 is going to be 1.9. There will not be a specific range for these. The absolute maximum will be 3. Well, you know, we could do it for each one of them. So, 1.9 will be the absolute minimum. The tier specific low and the tier specific high would be I don't want to say 2.5 because that's kind of, we could do it that way, but that's kind of the easy way out, which is just to follow the AMs all the way down for the tier specific high. I'd rather do it so that there's a little more variation. Again, though, for these first couple tiers, there's going to be a larger array, so it's good that we're having a larger space because it's going to get smaller on 4. So let's say let's call it 2.3. So what this means is that the absolute lowest, absolute low value is the lowest size that the planet can be for that tier. The absolute maximum is the highest size it can be for that tier. The tier specific low is the absolute lowest that only this tier can be, and the tier specific high is the highest that only this tier can be. So in other words, a tier 1 planet cannot be between 1 and 1.8. But a tier 1 planet can be between 9.1 and 3. Just like a tier 0 can be between 1 and 2.5. But we have a certain range that's reserved only for that specific tier. Again, to promote a little more diversity within the planet sizes. Alright, for tier 2 then, we have an absolute low of 2.4. And an absolute high of, let's call it, 5.3. And the intersection will be 2.4. That's kind of convoluted, though. I mean, it made sense at the beginning, but now I'm thinking about it. If tier 0 can be between 1 and 2.5, then why is it that tier 1... How can we have it so that tier 1 can also be between that range? Or no, wait, 1 and 1.8. Never mind. But again, like I said, if tier 1 can only be 1.9 to 2.3, then how come tier 0 can be that range as well? So let's go ahead and modify this a bit. We're going to make this so that the TSL and TSH are actually what we'll say the butter zones. In other words, the average size of that a planet in that tier will be between those. But then there will also be outliers. Let's explain it that way. That makes a little bit more sense. So what that means is that in tier 0, and we're going to go ahead and increase 1 to 1.2 for the TSL. So what it means for tier 0 is that while most tier 0 planets will be between 1.2 and 1.8, you will have some that can be between 1.8 and 2.5, and some that can be between 1 and 1.2. And that's how we'll do that. That's how we'll use that. And the TSL will have to be a different number from the AL. Just so there's a little buffer room on that side too. So instead of 1.9, that one's going to be, we'll call it 2. Instead of 2.4 for, let's see, tier 2, the AL is 2.4, so the TSL should be, we'll say 2.8. The AM is 5.3, which is a pretty large range there. So the TSH should be 4.1. Tier 3 will have the largest range of planet sizes. And then after that we'll have a decreasing range. So it starts out small, it gets a little bit bigger, biggest, a little smaller, a little bit smaller. So that we'll have a nice bell curve, if you will, for not only sizes within the tiers, but for the tier sizes possible overall. You want to have a nice just bell curve with it. So 4.2 will be the absolute low. The tier specific low will be 4.8. The absolute maximum will be 7.7, and the TSH will be 6.9. For tier 4, we'll start with 7. The low will be 7.5. Let's see, so that's 2, 1, 4, 6. Okay, I guess what we'll also do is that as we're going up, the number of planets that are in the smaller section on the left side of the equation here will be larger than the ones on the larger side. So you'll have a higher chance of getting a 7 to 7.5 planet than you will to getting a whatever the highs will be. I think the high for 4 is going to have to be 8.4, which means the TSH will be 7.9. And for tier 5, we'll have 8 to 8.8. The high will be 10, and the total tier specific high will be 9.7. Alright, I think I like that scale. Now, how to translate this scale I've created into the game. That's what's going to be interesting here. We need to figure out a way to say that we want to do the average sizes at a 1.5 to 2 times rate of the outliers. Then we also want to say, though, as we go higher, we want a higher possibility of outliers. So we have to figure out a way to do that. It's obviously going to have to be done through random. This is one part of coding that I find kind of aggravating, is trying to figure out ways to do things like you have something that you want to do, and you have to figure out how do you accomplish that, and how to accomplish it without creating some sort of Franken code that totally just bloats up your program. So, let's see, we need to create a planet size random if we have not already. We already have planet size. Okay, we got the planet size random. Very good. Of course, I don't think I originally intended to use it this way, but we're going to. How do we accomplish this, though? Also, I need to check random. I think I added a float. I'm not sure, though. Okay, no, not there anyway. What about in random itself? No, there's nothing there. Let's see. Randomize float. Let's see if anybody else has a solution for that. Random float. So, low plus float rand. I wonder if that's kind of how this one's already set up. Low plus rand, modulus high plus 1 minus low. That's the current random function I'm using. And,